Hello everyone. This is Nidhi and you're watching This is Digital Marketing. I am super thrilled about today's session because we have Olga with us. And I know Olga from, I think, 2019 when we first met in SEM Rush conference. Olga was working with SEM Rush. Back then, she was helping SEMrush with influencer marketing. Olga brings in 10 years of experience into marketing. She has been into influencer marketing, product marketing, um, and yeah, that's how we met in 2019. And today in 2021, she is here to talk to us all about influencer marketing in the B2B space. She has a good amount of experience of working with IT companies. And after SEMrush, she has moved into her next role where I think, Olga, you really wanted to move into a product centric role, and that's where now you are. And you're working with a Netherlands based company, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, so right now I'm working in a UK-based company called SumsUp, which is doing identity verification for users, also IT company.
Oh, that's great. Olga, you tell us a little bit about yourself, and so that our viewers can know a little bit more about your work experience and what drives you towards marketing.
Sure, thank you. Thank you for having me today with you. So as you've mentioned already, I've been working in marketing for like 10 years. And during that time, I had an experience with different fields: brand marketing, influencer marketing, communications, social media, also product marketing. So I can close the whole life cycle of the startup basically myself right now. Which I also had an experience with. But yeah, so if we're talking about the influencer marketing, I think that's really interesting and trending topic. And if you are going to Google it, you will mostly see B2C influencer marketing, like when you pay some influencer on Instagram, so they can show your product on their account, which is like not always relevant for the B2B companies, and which is actually kind of a challenge, but at the same time that drives you, like, because it's not a usual task when you just pay and check ROI, but you have to build communication.
Yeah, and I think that's a very valid point, Olga. When it comes to B2B marketing, it gets so tricky. And my first job was into B2B marketing. And where do you start? Where do you start acquiring new users is a big question mark when it comes to B2B marketing. Like, you can't really go out and just start advertising and start acquiring B2B users. They are mostly senior level people. So reaching out to these people is even more difficult. So to that point, I would like to hear from you. Why do you think, and in fact, let me step back and start from, as per you, what is influencer marketing? And the follow-up question is, why do you think B2B space influencer marketing is a great place of choice for acquiring new users?
Sure. So basically, like, an influencer marketing means working and leveraging the power of people who has some influence on their community. So those can be different influencers. They can be speakers, they can be social media influencers. Mostly people, when they say influencer marketing and when they say influencer, they always, like, I mean, I think in 99% cases, they mean influencers, like social media ones, because it's booming right now. So why the brands should use it? I mean, that's kind of a power of authority. Like, this person built the trust, and you can just, come here and use this trust instead of building it from the scratch. So why not do this? Because when you say we are good and our product is good, people don't trust you. But when someone they trust says the same, it means like much more. They believe this person, and they listen to them, and that brings your brand the same level of trust as these people have. And one more point I wanted to add is basically So you can consider having loyal influencers around you. It's the same as you have an army of people who will always support you online, especially like in this challenging world when there are always people who will hate you and can say different stuff about your company and your brand. It's really important to have protectors, people who will come and say that you're good instead of you go there and answer. That works much more better.
Yeah, I think that really makes a lot of sense. Tell me, Olga, if I am a B2B company and I'm a marketing manager at a B2B company, how should I get started? How should I think about uh, going on with an influencer marketing plan? Should I start looking for influencers on my own? Should I go to an agency to do that? Do I DM them? What do I write to them? What kind of proposition should I have for them? Uh, I have a lot of questions, but I would pause here and would let you speak on this.
Sure. So I think what is important here is to consider influencer marketing as a part of your like overall marketing strategy, because that influence a lot. Basically, you have to understand what is the market you want to approach, who are those people you want to approach, and what is the message you want to like send them. So that all basically defines how should you proceed with your influencer strategy. Because when you have a goal, for example, you want to have more leads from particular segment, then you just start researching this segment. Or for example, if you want to just increase the brand awareness, that's another goal, and you have to proceed differently, like you have to do different actions based on your goal. And in terms of like, should you go yourself or should you hire like an agency or should you hire a special person? I believe that really depends on your company and your team, because sometimes you just know that your team has resource to do this yourself. So basically, probably they already have some experience from previous companies or not. But if you feel like you are capable to do this yourself in-house, you can try. I mean, you can always go to the agency, but if you feel like you are limited with resources and you just like you have a budget to hire an agency, then of course that's the way you should go for. But I think it's important to remember that most of the agencies are also B2C, honestly. So it's also a challenge to find the right agency who is working with B2B guys. And yeah, so I would say for the B2B, honestly, in-house team probably would be better, because that also like builds a long-term relationships with your company instead of like building these relationships with the agency. I think agency works better when you are working like campaign-based, but if you are working like on the long-term communication, then doing it yourself is always better.
I think that absolutely makes sense that most of the agencies are B2C agencies, and
Yeah.
hence the expertise of B2B might be limited. To that point, Olga, help me if you can share some insights from Semrush. How how do these companies, like these large companies that are IT solution based, how do they go about finding the right B2B solution provider? And if you want to take any other example, feel free to do so.
Yeah, sure. So I would speak of like my whole experience with different companies, because they all like the same kind of SaaS solution based from B2B. So basically that's about the research. You can use some kind of tool, like there are tools which can basically work as a hub. You can just search for the influencers inside this tool. You can search for any influencer management tool. They basically all offer this option. But another way to do this, you can also go to Twitter. And I mean, that depends on the field, of course, you're in. But if we're talking for like about IT or digital marketing space or SEO space, that's mostly Twitter, where all the folks are communicating. So you can go to Twitter and you can just identify manually people who are talking a lot about some topics. You can search for the hashtags, you can search for some person, and then for example, if you know one influencer you trust, you can see people he retweets, and then you can follow them as well. And for example, companies like Semrush, they do Twitter chats like weekly, so you can also see who is participating there and follow them. So that builds like a network like this. You just follow people, they follow you back, then you see like recommendations who you should follow again, etc. So that's like, I think for the start, that's like the way to go. Because once you grow your audience, you can find organically yourself. Then you can use the tool to expand this. But if you're just starting, I mean, you don't need like 5,000 influencers right away to start working with. You just need to identify like I don't know, like golden 10 or 50 people you want to start with. And you just have to learn about them a lot. Like, what are they talking about? What are the subjects they're discovering? Like, what are their needs? So if you see that, for example, they are, I don't know, like they're doing a webinar, you can offer them, okay, we can help you with this. We can help you with promo, whatever. So you have to know these people like, you know, by heart to recognize them, to know what are they doing, what is their life about. And for that, I would suggest to focus on a limited amount of people at the beginning. And then once you build the trust with them, you can move forward instead of like, you know, building a huge database right away, because you will not have resources to work with all of them.
That totally makes sense. So Olga, let's take a use case. Like we are talking about IT based companies. So what if I have an IT based company wherein I can offer the product as a free trial version as well?
Mhm.
You said the first step could be going on a platform like Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn. Let's consider LinkedIn as a platform where my audience is. My product is such that I cater to senior management in your organization. So LinkedIn is my platform. And like you rightly said, it doesn't matter. We don't need to expand to 5,000 influencers from day one. We can
Yeah.
start small, start having conversations on their posts, or see who is conversing on your post, and then you follow them and they follow you back. That's how you acquire these influencers. What happens when, no, that's how you identify these
Yeah.
influencers. Now, once the identification step is done, what is the next step? How do I reach out to them? And how do I acquire them?
Yeah, so I think that's the most challenging part actually, when you have to outreach to them, because if you are going to sound too silly, no one will talk to you. So at this stage, I think it depends on the product you offer. For example, if you offer a product that is valuable at the market and that is well known and that people want to use, and like they really will appreciate the opportunity to not pay for this product, that's one thing. Then you can just offer the product, of course, and ask for their feedback. Like not saying, okay, here's the product, please mention us, but saying, okay, we value your experience. If you can just provide us your feedback on the product, we will appreciate it. That also works with actually with the new products. When you're just about to go live, you can outreach to influencers and say, okay, we are just building the new product, we are a startup, please give us your feedback. So that could work as well. But sometimes testing the product can be a challenge. I was working for one IT company. So basically, it's not just a SaaS when you just go and start using it, but it also includes the deployment, which is basically a hectic task for them. And in that case, when you offer the product, that sounds like a work for them. And they call it kind of evaluating the product, which is basically a paid option. Instead of like, you know, giving them a favor, you are basically asking for it. So it's really tricky point. I would say if you know that your product is not that valuable for them and will not bring them value right away, then it's better to find a way you want to engage with them. For example, you are building like a blog post with a forecast for the next year. And you just write them like saying, okay, we are doing this roundtable. Do you want to be a part of it? That's also, I mean, with influencer marketing, what is the main challenge? You have to be really accurate. Who are you approaching with which message? So if you outreach to a small influencer, like a nano influencer or micro influencer with such message, and if you also have some reach, then it sounds good for them. And most probably they say yes. But if you like have, I don't know, 1,000 people visiting your website and you approach a huge star, of course, they will not appreciate it. And for this, I would say you just start building a normal human conversation with them. Like, giving, I don't know, retweeting them, giving your feedback, being active on their side, and then asking if you can be a part of their activities, like if you can help them in some way. Probably they can tell you that they are ready for only paid collaboration at the beginning, which is also okay. I mean, you can start with a paid one as well to just, be started from somewhere. So you start with a paid one and then you grow your relationships further. So I would say it's really case by case scenario. You have to understand first your business and the field and how other brands approaching influencers. Because, for example, in IT world, it's really popular to build a community and for example, you can also create some kind of certification or whatever and call them like, I think that, what is the brand? So one IT brand, they have this part, it's like a 100 top influencers around this brand. They give it as an award, like you are an influencer who are with us. So that's also an option. I mean, because people feel good about themselves when they get awarded.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes a lot of sense, actually. So I'm picking up some really crucial points that you have mentioned. Like in retail, what happens is you have a product that is very easy to use. You show that product, you use that product, you consume that product, and you do influencer marketing. However, when it comes to B2B, it's tricky because, like you rightly mentioned, in certain cases, there could be a deployment cost as well as time, and not just cost and time, but also overhead of getting your entire data into that system. That becomes a really long process, and it might not just involve influencer but also influencing other people like tech, marketing, other business units that are involved in that process. So and as we speak, it occurs to me that how difficult and challenging your previous role was, and how beautifully you were performing in that to get all those influencers to do the job that the company expected you to. Talk to me about both the cases, Olga. How do we approach when I understand when you can give a free trial version and it is easy to deploy, users might be more than happy to try it out and churn some data and show it in their presentations, and they have a quick win via that product. What happens, like you mentioned, you gave an example, do something like an award ceremony, but what happens, what are some other scenarios where your product is something that takes money, time, effort, a lot of other teams involvement? How else do you approach such a product when it comes to influencer marketing?
So I think here you should focus on activities rather than product itself. As I mentioned, you can ask them for a quote for your blog post. I mean, if you don't have a huge reach yourself yet, you can do the guest posting like in any famous media and use their quote there. So you offer them a huge reach. Like you say, or you can say we will promote it via like paid social. So it will get bigger region than we have now. You can also invite them to the webinar.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah, that's also an option. You can offer them guest posting on your website, or you can offer them shoot out on your social media. One more way, for example, how you can start your conversation, you can do a social media post or like a blog post saying, I don't know, top 10 influencers we follow at our company, and you tag them. And then they say thank you. And then you outreach to them and say like, we value your work. And then conversation just starts. That's also one more idea how you can actually, I mean, basically the scenario is always the same. You give them and then like you give, and then you can ask. So you always have to think what you can give them first. If you just start building the communication like without any stuff you ask, you can go to them at the conferences, you can follow, for example, if they are performing at some conference, you can watch their speech, and then you can do some kind of recap with the insights they shared and tag them and say like thank you, and then they retweet you, and like again the conversation starts. So basically you have to find a point where you can give them some value from your side first. It can be anything actually, like I don't know, they have a new child just like was born, you can send a gift saying like congratulations, or you can send a message when they got promoted at their work, like because you follow them like, you know, a weirdo, so you know this.
So yeah, what I hear you say is you need to really care about them. Like you mentioned, having a child is a life event. So if you are sending someone, this is an intimate gift. You're keeping a tab of their life event, sending them gifts, and of course, I think you do something nice to someone by the sheer logic of reciprocity. Someone then feels like giving back to you. I
Yeah.
think that's a very very good valid point. Um, I would also want you to talk about we mildly touched upon that it doesn't matter from day one how many influencers you have, but what's a good idea? What's a good scale size for having influencers for a B2B company? I understand that it would also depend on what stage your business is into, but typically, large companies, large IT companies, how do they manage? If you can give us some examples or walk us through that, this is the scale and size these companies deal with influencers. And then also, are these influencers typically national level, regional level, international? If you can give us a sense.
Yeah, so if we're talking about the scope of influencers companies work with, I mean, honestly, working like this, as I've mentioned, like when you know these people so good, that cannot be like more than 100 people. For one person, you like physically cannot care about more than 100 people. So I would say usually it's still about priorities. Like you still have like top 10, top 50, top 100, and you have to do kind of a tiers. So you can plan different activities for different tiers. Like, okay, we have those top 10 people, I mean, like they are our family. And then we have top 100, we are talking with them like on a weekly basis. That's like the rule. And then we have a huge scope, like I don't know, 1,000 influencers. We cannot, of course, be in touch with them all the time. But for example, let's say we launch a new feature, and that's for the e-commerce. And then we go to this bigger scope and we'll search for people who work in e-commerce and talk about e-commerce. And then we approach to them. Yeah, so basically you just get in touch with them from time to time, and you just share with them relevant content, relevant stuff when you need the scope out of your regular circle, because sometimes you need it. Or for example, if you are launching a new version of the product and you want to do a webinar and you invite like influencers to your closed event, which is like not available to anyone else, but only for the influencers, where you can share like advanced ways to use the product, for example, because I mean, they are influencers for a reason, because they are an expert in their field. So you can talk with them on a different language, not like with a newbie in the digital marketing, for example. So you can also invite them to this kind of event, and then you can approach the bigger scope because it doesn't take a lot of effort from your side. like not researching every day what's happening with them. So I would say like a couple of thousands is the scope you should be looking at in general, but you still have to have your group, which is you're working with like really close all the time.
Yeah, that's a very good explanation, that there are some really close-knit people you really care about, then there is a larger circle and there is the largest circle. What kind of engagement activities we can do with people who are in the smallest circle, people who are really close to us, we want to engage them really well? How do you make them feel valued, and how do you engage with them, and what kind of influencer marketing we can expect out of them?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So basically, I mean, we have like a different world we live in right now. So there are no offline meetings almost. But I mean, in a normal world, you would like to meet them offline because that is important. Kind of like, you know, having just a party with them. I mean, like we've met at the conference, right? So we had this like in not a formal conversation, but just like a normal human being conversation, which basically makes the relationship closer always. So I mean, if you have an opportunity to go and like go out with them, just go to the bar, talk with them, just make friends, I don't know. But in online world, of course, that's difficult. So I would say having like you know, you have to build a feeling for them that you're always by their side. So in case they have any question, they should not go, I don't know, to the customer support. They should always come to you in terms of your product or like any, I don't know, if they are writing an article, you are always here to give them a quote from someone from your team, for example. Or if you see that they did the report, then you like retweet them because they are your friends. You want to give them shout out as well. And in terms of what we are expecting from them, of course, when you give a lot, you expect something back. I mean, in influencer marketing, what is the challenging part? You cannot go and say, okay, we gave you the product and you didn't mention us. But you can check this and then you can decide if you want to keep giving if this person never gives back. That's, of course, on your side. You can just at some point, you know, stop being that careable because you don't see any return of your investment of your time and resources and money and the product, etc. So, I mean, you have to see that this person mentions you regularly. And in terms of like, also you can track if this person mentions your competitors and how loyal is he. I mean, you cannot expect people to be exclusive, of course. And a lot of people use a lot of tools at the same time. So because one tool is better for one stuff and another is for another stuff. But you have to be sure that this person is not speaking in a way which is compromising you. That is important. Like if he just says, okay, this company did a great report, that's fine. I mean, of course, but if this person says, okay, this company does this really good and like comparing to that company and mentions you in a bad way, you don't want to keep working with this kind of people, I guess. So yeah, I mean, I guess we will talk in a bit about KPIs, but I can mention them here. Like, you know, when you work with B2C, you just have KPI kind of return of investment or conversion or like sales. When you work in B2B, that's a bit difficult because you cannot give them, I don't know, UTM link for the free mention, right? So you have to make some more complicated metric. Like you have to check the number of mentions, as I said, number of mentions of competitors, how well they answer you. If you share with them, for example, your new blog content and you say, okay, guys, please share if it's okay for you. And you can check if they actually do this or like if they say, okay, or if they never actually open your email. I mean, today we can track who opens our emails and click in our emails and even messages. So I think in B2B marketing, you have to create this score, like you have to analyze the parts what are important for you. I mean, it also depends on your business because for some businesses, mention from stage is more important, and for some businesses mentioned among their partners can be more important. So you have to consider the actions you actually will expect from them, and then you have to track this, of course without asking them, but like, track on your side, and from time to time evaluate if you want to prolong your communication with this person, or if you're just wasting your resources and it's not worth it, and then you can get someone else in this close circle.
Yeah, to that, I have another question, Olga. So, like you said, that of course it cannot be just giving, giving, giving. You need to receive also. Uh, One question that is coming to me: how do we establish that? Okay, it's not just one way broadcasting; it is a mutual relationship. So you do something, and we do something for you. Because we are not talking about family relations here. We are talking about business relation. It is a business relation, and just like any business relation, it has to be either linked to money or some kind of barter system. But how do you establish that the outcome is expected when I'm sending you an email, or when there is an article going out, or when there is a podcast or webinar request, you are expected to deliver on it? Are there some subtle ways, or you overtly do it?
Yeah, I would say you have to be really gentle. Like you cannot push too much, because this person first feels about himself really good. Like he's an expert and he's famous and he has an influence. And like you really don't want to make them angry, because they have an influence and they can, turn it
Yeah.
in a bad way to you. So I would say you can mention this in a gentle way, kind of saying like, we value you as our friend, so can you please help us? Um, just like giving a hint of the feeling that you gave them a lot, and you just expect the favor back as a friend to friend, not as like you have to give us, but like in this way. Or for example, it's the same like when you invite someone to your event, and then you cannot make them mention that they are speaking at your event, but you can say like, we want to have more people on your webinar, like where you're speaking, and we want your audience to come as well, so please share this information. So that's basically the same way. You can ask them like, okay, I don't know, we mentioned you in this blog post. We will appreciate if you can give us shout out and help us a bit. And sometimes you can also use kind of a personal stuff, like that's really important for me, to show that we got bigger engagement. So can you please help me out with this? You are a lifesaver, please help me this. I mean, because people like helping people, not companies. So that also can work.
Yeah.
It's always, like you are balancing between giving the feeling that they own you, that is bad, and giving a feeling that they can help you and feel good about themselves one more time.
Absolutely, that makes a lot of sense, and thanks for actually specifying that, because at one point I felt that okay, so we are doing XYZ for you, and you need to do XYZ, and here is a document that states all of that. But thanks for clarifying that. Yeah, they have influence. It makes a lot of sense that if you angry them, it might turn the tables in other direction.
Yeah.
So yeah, another question that I wanted to ask you actually is, we understand influencers when they are national level, because it's easy to understand who they are, people like us. But
Mhm.
how do you manage, and you have expertise in doing that, how do you manage when you are managing influencers at an international level, people who speak, eat, behave in totally different way, who are very different from you? How do you understand their cultural, non-tangible aspects that they care about? Because each I think country behaves in a very different way, and I'm sure you dealing with Indians would have been a very different experience when you are dealing when you worked with people in Netherlands or say UK. So talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, that is really important to understand these cultural differences. Because as you've mentioned, like when I started working with India, I've been to India before, but it was like a vacation, I don't know, 2 weeks vacation in Goa, which is not like the same as working with the Indian region. And then you just learn. I mean, you can talk to someone local, or I mean, in my case, I could talk to Yulia because she is almost local. But you have to read their social media. You have to follow people. You have to see how they communicate with each other, and you have to test. Basically, you send a message and you see if the people respond, like the way they talk to you, and then you start adjusting your way of talking to their way of talking. And as you've mentioned, like when I started, so after India, when I started working with the Northern Europe, which is like completely different world, and if like Indian people are really responsive, they always eager to talk to you, more or less. And there are people are not responding. Actually, they can do something for you but they will not respond you. Like you can ask them to share, they will share, but they will not answer you. You just see the share, okay, that's good. I basically achieved my goal, but okay. So yeah, I think it's important to put yourself as much as possible to the environment they are in. I mean, in our global world, that's easy because you can just read their media and follow them on social media and see how they talk to you. I mean, with the local languages, that's a bit of challenge because, for example, when I don't know, like you work with Poland, you have no clue what is in Poland, like how they talk, like what is the language, how to read this. You can use Google Translate, of course, to understand the meaning, but it does give you a like feeling of tone of voice, you know. But I mean, start talking with them and see how they talk to you. That's, I think, the way. And I mean, even I remember once I was writing one guy saying that he had a great article, and he was like, "Okay, that was like in Swedish. How do you know it was great?" And then I said, "I use Google Translate." So I mean, you know, that can be also kind of an icebreaker when you make a joke that even if it was in Swedish, I managed to read this. So please talk to me for this at least. That can also
that
be.
that that absolutely, that's adorable actually, and that makes a lot of sense. In fact, I was recently working on a campaign which was a regional campaign, and I don't speak all the language that we speak in India. So I had a really tough time managing that campaign. I can relate. I was translating to figure out, and in fact, I felt like a foreigner in my own company, in my own country, to figure out, okay, what is it that these people are going to like, and how
Yeah.
to use this, that. So I totally relate with what you're saying, that yeah, having exposure to their digital handles, digital behavior helps a lot. I think that makes a lot of sense. That's how we can, I think that's how everyone of all age groups are learning today, and I think that's a wonderful place to start learning. Are there any is there any difference when that you would want to point out when it comes to national influencer managing national influencers versus international influencers? Are there certain things apart from, of course, language and the culture? Is there something that you should keep in mind when you are doing some kind of barter? Do things change? Anything that you would like to highlight?
Honestly, I was never working with people from my own company, from my own country. Like I worked for international field for too long, I guess. But I would say the difference is, of course, when it's a local people, you understand more clear how to work with them because you know the mentality, and that would be easier, I guess, to arrange like a meeting offline or sending them a gift within the country. You know, it's like first it's cheaper, then it's easier, and also you speak the same language with all,
And
which
easy
like
to
always.
figure out what to gift. I think
Yeah.
once you go international, to figure out what should you give to other person is also a tricky thing to crack.
Yeah, Actually, I found out that there is a service which basically you can do the branded stuff, and then they keep it at their place, like they have kind of a storage, and then you just give them an address and they send to some person with, like, you know, a postcard or whatever. They send your branded goods to that person. So that made for especially those cases when you have to manage international communications with different countries and you don't want to waste time on like going to the post, etc. Yeah.
Oh, that's super cool.
Yeah, because I
Yeah.
was always thinking like, okay, I mean, like you have states, you have UK, how can you do this? And yeah, there are services that do this for you.
Yeah,
But
because
yeah, I think the difference is that a local market is cheaper and simpler to approach. And if your product is relevant both for local and international market, I would say you can start with local, you can test on locals, you can decide how are you going to approach influencers and then just scale internationally. And also like going internationally, you don't have to go like worldwide right away. You can just start, for example, if you're a European company, you can start with the UK, for example, or like, I mean, if you're from India, you can start with the United States, like just for testing. Also, you have to consider that it depends on the fields because the community is different. You have to learn, for example, on Twitter as well, you can learn that, okay, in the United States, for example, they're not really community, you know, they're not really friends with each other. Everyone is separated. And you understand that it's difficult for you to go there because you have to approach every person one by one. And yeah, like you see in the UK, they have like really good community and you can just enter this community easier and just approach all of them at the same time. Then you can start with the easier market as well. So it always comes to the research, honestly. You have to know where you're going and why you're going there.
yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, another question that in fact we were discussing offline also to, how do we measure? You slightly touched upon that in case of B2C, it's much easier, and B2B, you can't really have a tagged link. You mentioned through social mentions. What are some other ways through which we can do a before and after? For example, at any given point in time, a company might have a lot of campaigns running or a lot of activities running. How do we differentiate what is coming out? What is the outcome out of our influencer marketing efforts?
Yeah, so basically, I would say that mention is the most solid here. What you can measure. So like
Social
you,
mentions.
yes, that can be also a blog mention. I mean, any mention on their platform. So how you can count, you can just check their traffic. I mean, using any extension that shows you the traffic. You see what is their traffic and like you can count what is the share of people most probably saw this mention, and that can be counted as a reach. So, and the same with the social media, you can see the number of followers and count the reach you got. But as I, yeah, go
Yeah.
ahead.
So when you say count the reach, for example, if I am sharing something on my LinkedIn or Twitter, you will go on my post and check manually how much reach I have received in like 2-3 days time, and you will maintain a record, something like that. Or is there a tool that we can use in some shape and form?
Yeah, basically, I have an experience using Nimble for managing influencers. Basically, Nimble shows you the reach, so you can just check it there. It like counts from different platforms together. I mean, if you just start, sorry,
What is it called?
it's
The
Nimble.
okay,
Uh,
Nimble.
yeah, I
Okay,
can type you later, and you can put a link.
sure, sure.
Yeah, so that's kind of a CRM managing influencers. And it also has an interesting metric called cred score, which is counted. That's kind of a percentage or ratio between the number of followers and number of engagement they have. And you can consider like bigger than 650, 700 is good. Yeah, so I mean, I think different tools have different metrics. Like there are Tracker, which is a famous one, and Upfluence as well as famous one. I mean, there are like 15 probably tools which are really boosting right now the market. Yeah, so you can use them, of course, but when you're just starting, honestly, you don't really need this. I mean, you can probably, you will not get like 300 mentions right away. You get,
Right.
yeah, like you get 20 mentions, and you can actually manually check the number of followers of those people and just count them. But as I've mentioned before, I believe that it's important to measure also kind of a loyalty score. Just think over the criteria which are important for you, like a response rate, or like mention, or like giving, participating in your activities, or inviting you to their activities, or like, I don't know, calling you, or using your data, like mentioning your report, whatever. You can describe those stages, and then you can, for example, divide the scoring for each one. For example, they mentioned you, you give them 1 point. Like they did a retweet, you give them one more point. And then,
Wow.
yeah, you can do the scoring, and then you can compare them and see who are better engaging with your brand.
That sounds a lot like lead scoring. In
Yeah,
retail businesses, we do lead scoring where you calculate how hot a lead is, basis the number of touch points, how they
yeah.
participated on the call, downloaded. So I totally get it. That's a very good point actually to maintain an influencer score. Another thing that I wanted to talk to you about and really want to discuss, how do you build a community around influencers? Not just a community, of course, when you're doing influencer marketing, a virtual community without boundaries would be already there. But how do you bring them together in a closed virtual space, or physical space is not out of question, but virtual space? I know a lot of retail brands that do. I know a bank from UK, Monzo it is called. They do a very good community marketing. They have a Facebook group. Cora at one point was doing very good community marketing. I was part of their group. Simrush again does very good engagement via Facebook group. How do you bring all these influences together and build a community?
Yeah, so basically they are also interested in this, because like having a good network is really important for every of us, right? So you just can say that, okay, we can introduce you to really cool people, and that's like a cool audience. You can get more reach, you can talk to them about, I don't know, your personal professional challenges, and you can find person who can give you valuable advice like this. I mean, you just have to make your brand really convenient for them to communicate around. Like you give them a Facebook group where they can talk about SEO stuff, or like you do the event, and that's the point where they can just meet each other. Like, in our conference, people came all the way from, I don't know, Ahmedabad to talk to each other, to see each other offline
Right.
in Bangalore, which is like kind of weird because they can meet there.
I
But
myself traveled all the way from Bombay to Bangalore just for the event.
exactly, because that's just a convenient place to meet all each other. And basically your brand have to be this place. You just have to think how you give them this opportunity. Will it be offline event? Will it be online event as well? Because I mean, we again live in the weird world. Or, but you can also do, like, you can start from a small part. You can have a webinar and just invite, instead of one speaker, like three speakers, and they talk to each other. And then you can talk to them like, okay, say hi to that person. And like, start building the communication again. And I mean, I'm not an expert, honestly, in community building, but that's like a whole, like another area of expertise, because in any community, if you're doing it on Facebook, I don't know, like WhatsApp or whatever, I mean, this, the community is dying without a person who is bringing the conversation all the time. So that's also important part, having a person who will actually be driving the conversations there. Because I mean, that's too naive that you put all the people together and they start talking. They will never talk if you are not starting this. But if you start like some kind of a conversation which has like different opinions. Usually people start discussing this, and then like the community is growing around your brand. But yeah, that's a lot of work. And I mean, that I think together, influencer marketers should work with the community builder together on building this community, because influencer marketing's role here is to bring influencers. I mean, once you meet a new person who has never been with your brand, you say, okay, we have this cool community of cool people. Do you want to join? And you invite them over to the group. Or like if you are really close, you can just, send an invite from Facebook. Like there is an opportunity to invite to the group, and you can message them, okay, I actually invited you there. I think that's also important part that shows the way you communicate. Like once you move from emails to Facebook or Twitter, that's also a sign of a like good relationships growing. Or like when you go to WhatsApp, that like your friends already.
That absolutely makes sense. Talk to me about what are some skill sets. We spoke about influencers. How about people who manage these influencers? What kind of skill set do you have, and what would you look for a person you are hiring for influencer marketing?
Honestly, that was a challenge for me when I just joined influencer marketing. I was like, okay, what are the hard skills I have to have? And like, there are no hard skills, honestly. I mean, you have to be a good marketer, I guess, because it helps you, because you know how the market works, you know how the research works, like it helps you, of course, the marketing background. But in general, there are no hard skills. Like you cannot go and learn how to code, I don't know, like how to use Google Analytics, whatever, because you don't actually need this. But it's all about soft skills, of course. You have to have a good communication skills, of course, and you have to understand people. You have to hear people, and you have to find a way how to bring value. I mean, that's also, I guess, coming from marketing, like, you know, when you have a set of features and you have to package this as a value proposition, basically that's what you do for the influencers as well. Also, I really liked the idea of my one of my managers, like to work with influencers, you have to actually know how to influence influencers. And there are pretty good courses on Coursera on influencing people. I think that was from some university. I can share a link with you afterwards. But yeah, I would say that having like just having a hand on all the recent updates happening, learning cases, what are the other brands doing? Like I've mentioned, you know, this award stuff, or like having some exclusive events for the influencers. So just you can learn from cases, and you have to always improve your communication skills and see how other people actually communicating, especially I think from the some experts. Like you can watch them, because you have this unique opportunity to watch really experienced people when you talk to them, so you can learn from them. How do they do this? How do they do the icebreaker? How they start conversation? How they share their experience? And you just learn from them, and that's really cool. And I really like that you have an opportunity to meet such cool people, you know, talk to them and they answer you, and that's like really great experience.
Sure, I'm sure, and that's very correct. You know, when you are dealing with influencer marketing, influencers, and dealing in influencer marketing, you are the first person who is influencing them. So you need to first know the nuances to deal with them. That's a great point. And with that, I would want to come to the final point. What are your final tips, or say sort of checklist that you would suggest any marketer when they are doing influencer marketing for the first time?
So I would say that it's important to grow your own network, to follow them, to not try to, you know, go from your corporate account and like start following people, but instead just build a personal communication with people. And also I really strongly believe that for the B2B field, that's the only option. You have to use the always on mode, like, not campaign based, but you have to be always in touch with people. So that's also important. And what I actually personally do, there is a feature called lists on Twitter. So you can just build a list with people who are in your circle, and you just go
Right.
and see updates on the list all the time,
Wow,
every
that's a
morning.
very handy tip. Yeah.
Yeah. And also I would suggest, like, honestly following the influencers. For example, Neil Schaffer, he is talking about influencer marketing. He has a book on this. So I think if you're entering this field, you have to follow him. And also you can follow the blogs from the influencer marketing tools. That's also good because they share a lot of cases how people leverage their tool, and that means like leverage influencer marketing as well. So yeah, I would say like improve your communication skills and just go and test and always improve the communication, because you can see like, okay, one person was angry with my message. I will never do this again. I will improve it and approach another person. So yeah, learning on your own mistakes, I think that's like relevant for any field, honestly.
Yeah, with this example, I have to ask you that what is one crazy experience you have had? I'm sure when we are dealing with people, there are experiences that are ought to happen that are like, oh, okay. So, what are your, if you would want to share something?
Oh yeah, at one of my works, I had a person. He was like a deep technical guy, and he was actually really talking to me. He asked me to share the product, and then he just blocked me. I was like, why? But he still was following the brand, but he blocked me.
Oh my
Like,
God.
me. Why? I don't know. So yeah, people just like, sometimes people just weird. So like, don't question this. Just go to another person.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, so all right. So I think that was these tips are something that are really helpful. I think I have covered all the questions. I'll just quickly go through my list. Yeah, one question that I wanted to check with you is pricing. How do you suggest if we are trying to pay influencers because the product is so difficult and complicated? How should we go about evaluating how much we should pay? Is it that we quote, they quote? How do we negotiate?
Yeah, that's actually really challenging question because I didn't have a lot of experience on the paid collaboration. But yeah, so basically, usually influencer calls the price. And then you just negotiate this. I mean, negotiation part is also depending on the country, because, for example, when we used to work for India, I mean, we were negotiating every price, which was like really unusual for me. But like in Europe, sometimes you're not able to negotiate. So yeah, you can probably research for the average rate on the market. You can ask your folks like what are the price they paying, and then you understand what is the benchmark. And of course you can, I mean, calculate the outcome. You can check the reach of this person, the engagement rate, and see, for example, evaluate the number of clicks, like just take the average conversion rate, let's say like 5%, like the conversion rate, and what is your like average conversion rate from traffic to sales, and you can evaluate the outcome. I mean, that's a rough estimation, of course, but you will see some numbers you will get back, and then you can compare with the price. But I mean, of course, also instead of like just calculating the sales, you understand that you also get the brand reach and like brand awareness, which is also good. So you have to consider the outcome and compare with the price, I guess. And then if you see that it's like worth it, then go for it. And if not, then you can challenge the price and negotiate the better conditions.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. And I think pricing is always a tricky thing to do, whether you're
Yeah.
talking influencer marketing or anywhere else. Wherever there is customization possible to any activity, pricing is free. But yeah, these guiding principles are super helpful, Olga. With that, we can call it a wrap. And it has been a superb experience to have you on the show, on the channel. I didn't know so many things. I think it was a super learning experience for me. And I would be doing certain things right next time when I'm reaching out to people for influencer marketing.
Thank you so much. Happy to hear this. And thank you for having me over.
That it's my pleasure, and I'm so glad that because of Simrush, because of influencer marketing, because of marketing, we could meet and we could catch up again.
Yeah, likewise. Really happy.
And I'll just pause the recording.